So No Fate reached out to us and he said, the PS4 saw a bounce of PS1 classics remade with high praises. With this in mind, what PS2 classic would you like to see remade for PS5? Now, before I throw it over to you guys, worth saying on here, you can't do a little shit out here and mention something like, I don't know, Shadow of the Colossus, which has already been remade, or Metal Gear Solid 3, or Silent Hill 2, because they're already in the works. So I want to hear what game you want to see remade. And let's stick this to one if we can, but if you've really got a couple more, maybe stretch it to 2. But let's kick this off. Spence, going to come across to you first. I don't know if you were alive for the PS2 generation or not, so it'd be interesting to hear what you have to say about this.
That's crazy. I was definitely alive, mate. There's one game that jumps out at me, I think, and that game probably jumps out to a lot of people. And I think there was rumors about it a while ago. I think some random people made a little test video for it. And that's Bully. We've talked about it in the past. Why is Bully not back? We want Bully 2. We want a remake. Rockstar don't miss, except for with the trilogy remake, but ignore that. They wouldn't miss with this, I'm sure. And it'd be good. And then there's a PS1 game I'd like as well, but we'll get to that if we get there. But Bully is what I'm saying for the moment. That's what I'd love to see.
That's a real strong choice. And you're right, yeah, we did discuss that a while ago, didn't we, on the podcast? I think this is one of those times where Rockstar are just sitting on a pile of cash and they're just not hitting the button on it because, yeah, it makes perfect sense. The thing that I remember we spoke about this at the time, but Bully would be, you'd have to have balls of steel to put that out these days. Everyone is so sensitive about anything, and a game about literally bullying people, putting that out these days. The thing about it is, if there's a company to do it, it's Rockstar. You know, who the fuck's going to cancel Rockstar? Are you mad? And that's kind of the whole point, right, of them.
Sure, you think it would be outrageous to do it, but then some people do. You never would have thought The Boys would be a show before it was a show. Because some of the stuff that happens in The Boys is mental. And Bully's, I'd say, quite tamer than The Boys. And everyone adores The Boys. I think it's outrageous to think of it until it exists, and then it's just normal.
Well said. I mean, Phil, did you have any experience with Bully back in the day?
I had many bullies, mate. That's why I ended up liking video games and staying indoors all the time. all those football boys, they picked on me. So, yeah, it brings back bad memories. But should we move this on? I get upset.
Of course, mate, of course. I don't want to remind you, getting those Nam flashbacks in front of me. Don't want those baby blues to start weeping on screen right now. So, Phil, what about yourself? What game are you bringing to the table?
Well, when I read this question, and thanks No Fate for writing in once again, I thought, how the hell am I going to choose? Because the PS2 was probably one of my favourite, if not my favourite, PlayStation. There is so many games that I loved, and I think it was more to do with the time of my life and it being at the right point where I had a lot of time to be able to play these games. And of course, I was going out to the States fairly regularly with my family, and we were able to buy PS2 games like 3 or 4 months before the curve of the UK getting those games. I had games like Metal Gear Solid 2, and I remember people didn't even know that was even existed in the UK because the internet wasn't really a thing, okay? It was talked about in magazines, and of course, you know, you had to buy those magazines. They were relatively expensive. So general knowledge of video games was sort of an all-time low, really, back in those days. But coming back from America, I couldn't wait. Walking into schools, fuck those bullies. I had Metal Gear Solid 2, and I was the big dog in town, and everyone wanted to come round my house. Did I let them? No. I played it on my own. All on my own. Locked the door. Fuck them. But the list is as long as my arm. Let me reel off a couple for you. Metal Gear Solid 2, as I've mentioned, absolute classic. Would love to see that on a remake. I know they've started with Metal Gear Solid 3, obviously just for the cash in. They should have started with 1 and moved through, but whatever, that's just the way things go. I guess the Bucks have spoken there. Ratchet and Clank, up your arsenal. Like Ratchet and Clank on PS5, incredible. Let's do some remakes of the older titles. Prince of Persia, a game I've been playing to death on the PS5. The Two Thrones, it was epic on the PS2. Zone of the Enders, come on. The games that cannot be mentioned, Outbreak, Code Veronica, the original Devil May Cry's. There is so many games on the PS2, and one of my favourite games of all time on PC got brought to the PS2. We had Half-Life on the PS2. So there is just so many games to choose from. But I think I'm going to approach this a little left field here, okay? And pretty much every episode, as soon as something about VR comes up, I think, there it is, there's the net, Kobe! And I slam dunk. But this time round, I'm going to take it pro VR, okay? And I'm going to think of a title from the PS2 era that would work well on PSVR 2. And I'm going to go for a light gun game, okay? So back in the day, you had Time Crisis 2, very popular version of Time Crisis, and then you also had the Dead Aim series. Probably won't talk too much about those because they were terrible. I personally loved them because I loved light gun games back in the day. They were always a party piece for when people came around my house, get the gun out, big CRT. Used to love that back in the day, but maybe not Dead Aim. So I'm going to go with Time Crisis 2 as my pick here, because I would love to see the resurgence now come back of light gun games. And I think VR is the perfect platform to like host that on, rather than them sell, light gun peripherals or go back to those, what were they called? Move toy things that you bought?
Yeah.
They were ridiculous. So let's not go back there. Let's just do something with the PSVR 2. Now, I know I did a little research, actually. I'm usually quite well prepped. There is a game out there called Crisis Brigade 2. I don't know if you've heard about this one, Spence. You tend to know your sort of indie titles on VR, the lesser known titles. And this is very similar to Time Crisis. I believe it's available on the Meta Store and the PSVR 1, if my sources are correct. And that was quite popular when it was out. So it's set up, it's ready for light gun games to come to PSVR 2. And I think it's not going to change the playing field. It's not going to make crazy amounts of money, but I think there's a market for that. And it would definitely get me more interested in VR if I had the ability to go back and play some Time Crisis. It'd be incredible.
Mate, to be fair, I have played Crisis Brigade 2. I played the beta version of it, the pre-alpha. I think I sideloaded it onto my Quest ages ago now, but I never tried it out past that. But I don't agree with the Time Crisis shout, just because, as much as I think it would be amazing and I would play it to death, I love the novelty of finding it in an arcade. And I think if I had it at home, I wouldn't care about it anymore. So it would kind of just ruin that experience for me. But otherwise, I mean, how often am I in arcades? It'd be fantastic to play at home, and you could play it online with the two players, you're both in. And you have to actually crouch instead of standing on a pedal. It'd be good.
Davey always talks about integrating, the aspects of VR into the game. And you've hit the nail on the head there. You could do the physical reload with the VR, couldn't you? And then you could actually duck in the game. If those sensors be able to pick that up, I'm assuming they could. But all those kind of things could be brought in and sort of elevate the aspects or the interaction, I suppose, when it comes to Time Crisis 2. Because before, it was pretty much shoot at a big TV and the hitboxes were quite large, and then you had one button on the gun, if I remember rightly, to sort of duck. I think that was the interaction you pretty much had, or you shot off screen to reload and you had the button to duck. I think that's all you had on Time Crisis 2. But you could really elevate that now with all the different things you've got on PSVR 2.
Personally, my choice would be Time Crisis 3 out of those. If it was any Time Crisis, like with the shotgun, or was that, or am I thinking of House of the Dead 3? I might be thinking of House of the Dead 3 that had a shotgun in the arcade. And that was always my favourite light gun game in the arcade. That was so sick. But I used to love light gun games. And the PS3 and the PS4, they had a good little run of them. PS3 specifically, with like PlayStation Move controllers and stuff. Like Dead Space Extraction's a fantastic light gun game. Absolutely adore that game, actually. So yeah, I think that there is a market for it, definitely. And it's something that I know I would be interested in. I don't know if it would make me like rush out and buy it immediately, but if it came up on sale or was on PS Plus or something like that, fuck yeah, I'd dive in for a couple of hours and play it. The only downside to VR is that you can't really hook two up to one console. So it means you can't play like local co-op like you can with, like if you're in the arcade or whatever.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. So it would have to be sort of online to have that interaction with another player. But I think it would appeal to that aging market that we have on PlayStation, the people that are sort of time poor, but actually money rich. So they can go out and they can buy those PlayStation VR headsets and dive back into the past of light gun games and that nostalgia hit that you would get from playing in the arcade or playing on your PSVR 2. I think there's something there. And I think, as I said, these are the people that you could sell it to and there would be a market there.
100% great choice. Absolutely great choice. Well, for me, you guys have come at this with some absolute blinders, right? And for me, there's 2 games that stand out too, and I'm only going to go into one of these in any depth, but let's just put a shout out on here for the game that was supposed to be remade, but then the studio got closed down, and that's Time Splitters. So Time Splitters 2, ideally, or 3. I fuck with both. I love 3, actually, but I know 2's like the kind of fan favourite. I would love that to get remade. I would love that, and I think with like proper online that we have these days, that game would have such a long lease of life, and just playing like Virus or anything like that would just be so much fun to be able to do. But my choice is a game that probably doesn't stick to the forefront of many players' minds when they think of the PlayStation 2 generation. Of course, Phil, you've reeled off some absolute classics. Spence, you've nailed out Bully, amazing. I'm talking all about a game that was done by Midway called Psiops. Did any of you guys play this? You basically play as the skinhead bloke, and you've got a load of psychic powers, so you can literally telekinesis people and throw them about. Or you had like a PK fire, like if I use a smash little thing here, and you could just set people on fire at range. And it was sick. It was proper arcadey. You just moved through the game, and then after you completed it, you had like a playground where you could then just spawn in whatever you want and just fuck around with your powers at full power. And it was just a proper fantasy trip, and there was nothing better. And the ragdolling was wild on it, like absolutely insane ragdolls. And so you could just pick somebody up, and it would be like living a Jedi fantasy. Because I could just pick them up and just dangle them off over a ridge and just set them on fire and then drop them. And it was just like proper chaotic. Like missiles get thrown at you, you catch them in midair, throw them back. I adored that game. I played that game more than I probably should have, and I absolutely adored it. Did anyone else have an experience with Psiops?
I don't remember Psiops, but I do remember the company Midway. And I was very fond in the PS2 era, I believe it was PS2, of a game called Gauntlet.
Oh, yeah.
It was a top-down hack and slash, but it was 4-player. And I remember when I was over in the States playing this in Disney Quest around an arcade with 3 other kind of guys all playing this game and absolutely loving it, because I don't know if you know about Disney Quest, but it was just this massive arcade owned by Disney. It's closed now, and you basically just paid an entry fee, and then all the games inside Disney Quest were technically free for you to play. So I remember going in there and playing a lot of Marvel vs. Capcom back in the day, and absolutely loving that. It was all just button smash. I didn't know any combos. I was a kid, right? But Gauntlet, it was just a hack and slash, and I remember dropping in as the archer, and a green archer. That was the stereotype there that you picked. You had like a barbarian. You had someone who could sorceress. I think probably. I'm probably getting a lot of these wrong, but they all tied to colors, and it was 4-player madness. And I remember really loving that game and buying that with a multi-tap for my PS2, so we could play 4-player when we got back to the UK. So that's my only run-in with Midway. But Psiops, I have no clue, no reference point for me.
Oh, you gotta get on some Psiops, mate. What about yourself, Spence? Did you have the pleasure of enjoying some Psiops?
Unfortunately, mate, I don't think I ever had the pleasure, but I do remember the game. So I'm not sure if I did play it or if I just saw it over a mate's house. But the second you said Psiops, I knew exactly what you're on about. Maybe I've seen a video on it, I'm not sure. But I definitely don't think I owned it. So I don't know. But I remember thinking it was a sick game when I saw it.
I think I may even still have it on PS2. Like, my PS2 library is really small because that was in the time frame where I was like trading in games. But I kept a handful of ones that are like really important to me, like Metal Gear Solid 2, Metal Gear Solid 3. And I might have Psiops down there. In fact, next time you're over, Spence, if I don't have it, I'll buy it. Mate, you'll fucking love it. You'll love it, dude. Proper, like...
Deal, mate. Deal.
Proper Sith mode moment. It's great.
The cover is absolutely epic. I just looked at my stack of games, because I've got all my PS2 games, all my PlayStation games behind me, and I definitely don't have it. But I just Googled the cover art, and it is absolutely retro epic heaven. It's just a bald-headed guy, as you said a lot of these games were back in the day, with his hand, like... doing psychic energy and the energy coming out his eye, but he's got a gun in the other hand. Why does he need a gun and psychic powers? It's whatever. Maybe they can explain that within the story if there was any story in it. But I think this is the best part of it. Psiops. And do you know the title of the game?
The
Do you know off the top of your
Mindgate
head?
conspiracy, I think. Is that right?
Correct. The Mindgate conspiracy. If that doesn't wind you up as a kid to be, oh my God, I really need to buy this game, I don't know what will. The Mindgate conspiracy. Fuck me. I would have bought that game if I had seen it.
Oh my God, dude. Honest to God. One day, tell you what, audience, if I'm alone on this, fine. But if there's somebody else out there be like, oh yeah, I fucking love psiops, let us know. Just literally message us on Twitter, reply to the YouTube comments, whatever, let us know. If there's enough people, I'll fucking stream it. I'll stream it and put a full video up for it. It'd be class to do that as a group, guys. That'd be so much fun. You guys,
Mate,
absolute sleeper hit.
it's £3 in CEX.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's it.
It's a crime to leave it there for £3. We gotta get on that.
Got to buy every copy.
Oh my God, everyone in existence. I can spread it out to people then. Let us know. If you want some psiops, let us know. Who knows? We may even do a competition if there's enough people. If it's £3 a copy, fuck, I can fork that out and send that out to someone. Let us know if you want some psiops in your life.